Welcome back to Journeyballaholic, the best talk show for basketball addicts. I'm your host, General Ballaholic. Now, on this journey, we're going to be discussing the Toronto Raptors' Kyle Lowry not getting traded, but make sure you stick around to the end of the video as I'll be giving you my trade biggest winners and losers. Now, if you're new to the channel, I'm a ballaholic. I'm absolutely addicted to basketball. Now, just like everybody, I've got my own opinions, but if you like opinions that are backed by facts, go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and also be sure that you hit that bell notification and turn it on to all notifications. That way YouTube will update you whenever I drop new videos.
Are you ready?
Okay, let's go ahead and jump right into this video, man. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to be discussing all of the trade deadline moves from yesterday. Not necessarily all of them, but I'm going to cover the biggest winners and the biggest losers. Now, make sure you stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to also be touching on all the Toronto Raptors moves, the moves that they did make, and even the big move that they didn't make. Now, let's go ahead and start this thing off with the biggest winners. To me, there was a handful of teams that made out yesterday. They had amazing trade deadline deals. But number one, I got to give it to the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls, to me, had one of the best trade deadline deals when you get an all-star caliber big man, Vucevic. He's a legit 2010 guy from the Orlando Magic, and they didn't give up much. They wound up giving up Wendell Carter and basically some picks. Now, the Bulls didn't stop there, though. This is what I love. They're trying to make a legitimate run for trying to be a playoff team in 2021. They go get a all-star caliber big man in Vucevic, but then they also make some smaller deals where they wound up bringing in Boston's big man, Daniel Tice, for basically some bench players, right? I think it was Mo Wagner, somebody that they wound up making in a multi-team trade. So you bring in legitimate front court help to help a guy like Levine and the rest of those young boys over there. Listen, I like the move, man. I really like the move. Yes, they had to get rid of Otto Porter. Yes, they got rid of Wendell Carter Jr. But at the end of the day, I think the Chicago Bulls got better. Their future's brighter because now you give Zach LaVine a legitimate all-star caliber big man to pair him with. I think their future's brighter, and I think their chances in this year's playoffs just actually increased. Now let's go ahead and jump over to the second team that I think had an amazing trade deadline moves. How about the Denver Nuggets, man? Let's go out west to the Denver Nuggets, who basically, they pushed all their chips into the table, and they said, we're going all in for the championship this year. Remember, they were in the Western Conference Finals last year. This Denver team here had probably one of the best days of all the teams. Excuse me. Think about this for a second. The Denver Nuggets went out there and acquired two pieces that they really, truly needed. They needed rim protection, size, and they needed some athleticism up front. Where you go and you get JaVale McGee, right? And you bring in Aaron Gordon from Orlando, because as we know, Orlando basically just blew the whole thing up, which is a smart move. We'll get to that as well. But the Denver Nuggets, man, I like this move. You bring Aaron Gordon over there, he gives you some athleticism, right? He gives you a guy that can play off of Jokic and his amazing pass. Like, the passing that Jokic has, being able to throw lobs up to Aaron Gordon, like, that was a big-time move. But the most underrated move was the JaVale McGee signing. Bol is just not really ready for primetime NBA playoff basketball. He's not ready for that yet. He's still got to fill out his body enough. But JaVale McGee has shown he can be the starting center on championship teams. We've seen that before. Now he's coming off the bench to back up Jokic. So I like this move because it's going to give them athleticism, rim protection, a lob threat. JaVale McGee, he's not the Shaq and the Fool JaVale McGee anymore. He's a legitimate champion role player, and I love the moves that the Denver Nuggets made. Now, you can't talk about winners without talking about Pat Riley and the Miami Heat. What a move. Because listen, these boys are up against the clock. Pat Riley understood one thing. They were on the outside looking in as far as contender status with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Miami was in the outside of that, right? And so going to get Victor Oladipo was a big-time move. They gave up Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk. To me, that's an upgrade. Whatever, however you want to slice it, that's an upgrade. Now you've got a guy that you can pair with Jimmy Butler, with Bam Adebayo, a guy who can is a two-way player. They can guard the smaller guards. The Butler's kind of guarding the wing players, and Bam's locking down the paint. But one of the reasons that I really like this move, and where I think Miami's got a potential to go from just a playoff team, because they're still trying to get into that playoff spot, going from a playoff team to go into actually legitimate title contention, they got one more move I think that we're going to see, and that's possibly adding one of these big men off the buyout market. Now, I'm not going to touch on that right now because I think I'm going to save that for another video, but there's some names out there that are guys that are being bought out. The Miami Heat are going to be in line for to be a prime destination for a big man that wants to join a title contending team, pair up alongside Bam Adebayo in that front court, and make this Miami team go to a whole nother level. We'll get into that in some upcoming videos. But for right now, I gotta put the Miami Heat as one of my biggest winners, getting Victor Oladipo. Now, if you're gonna talk about the winners, you gotta talk about the losers. And to me, one of the biggest losers, you gotta go with the Houston Rockets. Listen, you don't trade away Victor Oladipo and get Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk back. That wasn't just what makes this the worst or makes them one of the losers. You gotta remember, they got Victor Oladipo, right? Remember the whole Karis LeVert. Remember the whole James Harden trade. So this thing doesn't really stop with just this trade. You gotta go back. They basically took James Harden and made a bunch of moves to end up with Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and I think it's like a 2022 pick swap. Man, listen, I don't know about you, but one thing's for sure, two things for certain. The Houston Rockets front office is a mess. When they lost Daryl Morey, this team just has no identity. I don't know where they're going, man, and I do not like this move because I think you could have gotten more for Victor Oladipo. He's not what he once was, I get that. But Avery Bradley's the guy who they're talking about right now, maybe even potentially bought out and let it go on the open market. That's all you could get for Victor Oladipo? I don't like it. And it's not really, once again, it's not just about Victor Oladipo. It's about what they could have had they kept James Harden, or what they got in basically in exchange for James Harden. I don't like it. Houston is definitely one of my biggest losers. But there's a bigger loser than even the Houston Rockets. Let's go to the Boston Celtics. Let's go to the Boston Celtics. This right here is mind-blowing to me. This is a team that year after year, they accumulate asset after asset. And Danny Ainge, the hoarder of draft picks, does not know who, how, and when to pull the trigger to make the right move to bring in the right talent. We've seen in years past, he didn't make the move to get Jimmy Butler when he was available. He didn't make the move to get Paul George when he was available. He didn't make the move to get Kawhi Leonard or Anthony Davis. He didn't gamble to make those moves. Now he goes out and makes little smaller moves here, smaller moves there, and the Boston Celtics are an absolute joke right now. Losing record outside of the playoff picture. It's not going to get it done. But then you got a chance at the deadline to possibly do what the Chicago Bulls did and go get a legitimate all-star caliber big man. They don't do that. They got a chance to possibly, make a move to go get an Andre Drummond, who had been rumored to, Cleveland was looking for a trade package. They didn't do that. LaMarcus Aldridge, the Spurs were trying to get a trade package. They didn't do that. So now the question is, you didn't add a legitimate all-star caliber-ish big man. What did they do? They went out there and got another perimeter player. They go to Orlando Magic and do a deal with the Magic, but not the deal to get their all-star big man. They do a deal to get another wing in Evan Fournier. It's mind-blowing. Then they give up their big man, Daniel Tice, who played a really good role for them last year in the playoffs, give him up to basically end up with Mo Wagner, a bench backup big man for real. I mean, to me, I think it's a step back in all honesty. I don't like their moves. I don't like the direction. Danny Ainge has done okay in the past, but I think he's living off of that 2008 title. I think he's living off of that. What has he really done other than, having Jason Tatum? I'll give him credit. He did get Jason Tatum. I'll give him that. He got Jaylen Brown. I'll give him that. What else has he done besides draft? The trades just aren't there. It's not adding up, and I think the Boston Celtics are one of the biggest losers. But if we're going to talk about the biggest loser, I think we got to talk about the Toronto Raptors. Now I got to kind of preface this because Masai Ujiri to me is one of the best executives in the game. But the moves that were made, and unfortunately the move that wasn't made, it just is mind-blowing to me. Think about this for a second. Everybody understood that Kyle Lowry's days in Toronto were done. You saw the last game where he's walking off and he's throwing up the deuce sign and he's out. Mentally checked out. Everybody been talking about whether he's going to Philly, whether he's going to Miami. He was going somewhere. Then at the end, somehow the Lakers got into this thing. But nothing materialized except the moves he did make in the hope that it was going to materialize. He traded away Matt Thomas for a second-round pick. You trade away Terrence Davis for a second-round pick. Now you're clearing up space for a big move to come. I get that. You need to get rid of the bodies. You get a second-round draft pick back. I get it. You even make a trade to get rid of Norman Powell, who to me has been on an absolute tear, and you downgrade in talent to go get Gary Trent, who I like, Dookie. You know, he's been shooting well, averaging about 15 points a game. Another Dookie getting Rodney Hood. So I like those guys and their talent, but Norman Powell's the better player. Like, he's a much more efficient scorer by far than either one of those guys, and had been on an absolute hot streak. So you downgrade that. Okay, the argument's being made that maybe they couldn't pay Norman Powell. I get that. But all of this was leading up to something. And what it was leading up to was Kyle Lowry's about to go. The deal's on the table. The Sixers, they kind of pulled out. They didn't really have what you were looking for. But the Miami Heat had a legitimate package on the table. The LA Lakers are reported to have a legitimate package on the table. And it was said that the two teams, the Lakers and the Heat, decided the young players that they had, they were not going to give up for a 35-year-old point guard who, though he's a champion, though he's probably arguably one of the greatest Raptors of all time, he is in a contract year, meaning he's a free agent this summer. So he's a rental, ideally, right? A lot of people say Miami's probably the lead candidate to sign him this offseason. So, okay, but Miami's understanding, well, if we're going to get him this summer, we're not going to make a trade for him now, right? We'll just wait until the summer to sign him. And as we saw, Miami quickly moved and pivoted it and went ahead and got Victor Oladipo so they can continue to compete this year. Love the move that Pat Riley made. But Masai, you got to help me understand here. If Kyle Lowry's possibly out the door and gone, why would you not get something for him? The only hope that the Toronto Raptors fans have is that there's a sign and trade this offseason. Because if you don't get Kyle Lowry to agree to a sign and trade, because once again, he has to agree to it. So if you don't get him to agree to it, you let your arguably the greatest Raptor of all time walk out the door for nothing. That sets your franchise back. You lost some young players. Terrence Davis could have possibly, I liked his talent. Matt Thomas was an absolute sniper. So though these guys weren't necessarily getting a lot of minutes, they're still young. They still have room to grow. And getting second-round picks for them doesn't really do much for me. Gary Trent, I like him, but the Raptors got worse. They got worse. They're likely not going to make the playoffs this year, which is really unfortunate when you got Pascal Siakam. You've got Kyle Lowry, OG Anunoby. You've got talent on this team. I don't know where this team's going. Let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the Raptors moves? What are your thoughts on my biggest winners and losers? Let me know in the comment section what you think, man. Listen, I appreciate you for taking a look at this video. Until next time, make sure that y'all stay safe in the streets. General Hannibal X, I'm out. Peace.